bolstering the planning board's ability, giving them these tools to be able to hire, the developer will pay for an expert witness that, sorry, let me back up. The developer will be putting funds into an escrow account. Those funds will be utilized by the borough to engage our own expert witness. So they can give their testimony, refuting or supporting whatever the developer's expert witnesses are. But it's a level of protection for the town, so that we no longer have to just sit and listen to the developer's expert witness. Now we've got that layer of protection. The other part of it is, Mike, is this says that if there's a traffic study done, that you're going to have to do a traffic study that takes place on 2 weekdays and on a weekend, and there are 4 one-hour reporting periods for each of those days. So a total of 12 reporting cycles. And they have to, each day has to include an AM prime time and a PM prime time reporting period. So it gives us a more accurate portrayal of traffic on at least two weekdays and 2 weekends. So it's all about protecting us so that we don't ever have to sit in a meeting and hear, we have to just take the expert witness's testimony at face value because they don't want to jeopardize a license. So now we've got a little more oomph on our side.
So the thing that came, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Mhm.
So I'm very supportive of this, but given this conversation, there's nothing about seasons.
Same question.
Yeah, so I wonder if we do to add.
The reason I didn't write it in,
Yeah.
Carrie, is
Yeah.
because I don't know if, and Carol, you can weigh in on this, I don't think it's gonna stand up in court. If somebody puts in an application in November or December,
Yeah.
that we say you can't move forward on your project until August, because we're doing a report. I heard what Mike said earlier, and I'm glad that you brought that up, but I don't think that would stand up, because I did look into that, did the research. I don't think we can hold up an application that long.
No, you're correct.
Okay.
But I believe, as they also mentioned, there is a way of, and Mr. Romeyer can maybe weigh in on that, that you can, you have a way of estimating. If you're in the dead of winter doing something, you have a way of estimating, take things into consideration to estimate what the summer flow of traffic might be.
Correct. There's seasonal adjustments that are recommended to be applied in certain circumstances, and it's all laid out by the IT, Institute of Traffic Engineers. So everybody's playing by the same ground rules.
And believe you me, if we now have our own experts, that's gonna work its way into the presentation. Whereas that probably would have been put under the rug, swept under the rug, if it's just the developer's expert.
So Mayor, if I may, before you go into public session, there is one tweak to this that I think Ms. Berlin should read into the record.
You want me to take care of that?
Yeah, I think before the public hearing, so they're aware.
Okay, that's fine. Councilman Crowley and I had a discussion about some language that I had not made clear based on his notes and in our conversation. So for the record, Ms. Clark, the ordinance at G1A3. I'm gonna read you the corrected language. I believe you've already received, you've received copies of it, and it was posted with the correct language, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the language at that 3 is going to read, charges for a traffic expert whose analysis shall at minimum include, but not be limited to, the study of 2 weekdays, 1 weekend, and at least 4 one-hour recording periods, 2 of which must occur during peak hours in the location of the development. And the language that was tweaked, just so you know, I didn't read the whole thing, was and at least 4 one-hour recording periods, 2 of which must occur during peak hours. So that was it's not really a sentence, but that was the line that was added to this ordinance. So if you're going to move forward with it, it will be as amended.
Right, and one other point is, by law, this has to be sent to the planning board for what is called a consistency review. The planning board doesn't meet until the 14th, so the mayor will have a public hearing on this ordinance tonight, but it will be tabled for a vote until November 18th. with no further comment on the 18th.
Right, this would be the public
This is-
portion.
So at this point, I will open up, do we have a clip? What?
Do a motion in a second.
Oh, as amended?
As amended.
Oh, sorry.
So moved.
And
Okay. All in favor? Oh, do I need, no, I need to,
no, I wanted the motion in second before the public.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but let's get the, you got it,
Okay.
on amended, so you need a roll call.
yes. To a minute.
Mr. Baraka?
As
Yes.
amended.
Mr. Crowley?
Yes.
Ms. Hohenleitner?
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
That amendment has passed.
Now we need a motion to open.
So now, motion to open to discussion public
On this matter.
on this only. Motion.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, all in favor? All right, here we go. So, on this particular ordinance, is there anyone who has a question or needs clarification or something to say? Once again, comments, Stan, give your name and address, please. Nobody? Oh, I'm so delayed reaction. Sorry.
Jimmy Pissarro, 32 Davidson County. This is on the traffic study, right?
Just this ordinance, yeah.
Are pedestrians and bicycles still looked under that when you do those studies, under traffic?
I mean, it's,
Or is that a totally different thing? Where we have the bike trail, I mean, so many kids, I mean, our town's unique for walking around so much compared to like Middletown. Nobody walks around Middletown, everything's so far apart.
Right, so it is very difficult to prescribe specific conditions to be looked at and analyzed, because each site is unique, right? Sometimes, some traffic reports should include a distinguishment between regular passenger vehicles and tractor trailers. Sometimes we'll count buses, and yet, if there are pedestrian facilities involved, it could be appropriate to look at bicyclists and foot traffic as well.
Like something next to the school, there's a lot of foot traffic. It's different than somewhere else in town.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know how you would.
Well, I think just to add on to what Doug is saying again, because this is an expert witness that represents our perspective as the town, right? If a project was going to intersect, you know, the Hudson, you know, our pathway, or if some new project was going to bisect, you know, where there are kids because of the proximity to the school, I think that would definitely have to weigh into that.
Like Avenue D is part of the bike path.
Right,
Mhm.
right. That's a better example.
Does that answer your question? Or-
Yeah,
Okay. Yes, Mr. Sherman.
yeah, Mike Sherman, 55 Avenue D. I'd like to know who makes the determination of that 1 hour period in the morning and that 1 hour period in the afternoon. My recommendation, and I'm not telling you your job, would be the chief, because he knows the ferry schedule, he knows the local schedule of traffic and where the peak is. So, has that been determined what the peak hour is specifically?
No, not in this point.
It's different.
But it will be determined by
We
somebody.
now have 4 hours, before we didn't have anything, now we have 4 hours within these 3 days.
1 hour each.
Yep, and so we've got 4 hours each day to be able to look at the traffic and make sure that we're including that per whatever the project is. You know, if it was 7-Eleven now, you'd be looking at peak boat hours, for sure.
Yeah. Now, if you decide that it's important to include the bike traffic, the mommies with the little kids, towing their kids on the bike, on Avenue D, if you decide to make that part of the study, I would recommend that. If you decide to make the school drop-off area as part of that study, how are you gonna pick 1 hour each day to, if you don't include that, how is that gonna be accomplished, 1 hour each day? Let's say, for instance, the chief says peak traffic for the ferry is 6 to 7. Mommies aren't out with their kids on their bikes on Avenue D at 6 o'clock in the morning that I'm aware of, and I've been living on Avenue D for 15 years. and I've watched the traffic, the bike traffic there, okay? So I would recommend and strongly suggest that any traffic study you do includes pedestrian bike traffic. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to make a comment or question about this? Okay, can I have a motion to close public comment section on this ordinance? All in favor? Opposed? So now we will be tabling this until,
Give me a motion, second to table.
I thought we were, okay, that's fine. Okay,
So
so can we get a
so
motion?
moved to table.
Thank you.
Until,
November
June
18th.
18th. Second?
second.
Okay. Now can I have a roll call to table till November 19th, the discussion on this ordinance? 18th.
Mr. Brachia?
Yes.
Mr. Crowley?
Yes.
Ms. Hohenleitung? Yes. Ms. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
That is passed.
It should also be noted that the next council meeting is not the 20th. It is Monday, November 18th, and that is because the League of Municipalities is that week. I messed up the day of the week when we put the calendar together. So it's on Monday, the 18th.
We have 4 items under new business on the consent agenda. These items may be reached by one motion. If detailed deliberation is desired on any item, council may remove that item from the consent agenda and consider it separately. We are looking at Resolution 182, authorizing the participation in the Law Enforcement Support 1033 program.
Mayor, this is the LISO program where we can get surplus military equipment, and this is a yearly requirement that this resolution has to be done.
Resolution 183, appointments to boards and committees. Resolution, I'm sorry, yes. We are repopulating some committee positions that were left when Councilman Prager became the harbor master. I'll just read it. Whereas NJSA 4860-5 provides that the mayor nominated with the advice and consent of the council appoint all subordinate officers of the borough, and whereas the mayor has offered the following nominations for the offices in terms shown. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the Borough of Atlantic Highlands, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, that the following appointments and terms are hereby confirmed. I'm putting Mr. Murphy as a Class 3 member on the planning board, ending the term of Mr. Fliggers, which is the 31st of December of this year. So that basically is 2 meetings. For council committee, in addition to his other duties, I'm putting Mr. Deloso volunteered and requested that he be on the Fire Emergency Services Committee, because he's already a fire police chief and he's going to the meetings anyway, so that will be also ending December 31st. And police commissioner, Councilwoman Lori Hohenleitner, that too will be ending 12/31/2019. The other resolutions, 184, 2019, reaffirming design immunity and authorizing rebid.
Mayor, I never thought I would hear you say this. We have beat up FEMA as much as we can. We have fought with them for over 7 years now regarding the towboat building and the public restrooms. We were able to secure an additional $25,000. We now have over $1.1 million to rebid the towboat building. The last time we went to a public bid was in 2018. The project came in at about $1.2 million. Last night, the Harbor Commission authorized this project to go out to bid for the 3rd time, and we are hoping for some positive results. This resolution reaffirms the design immunity and also authorizes the bid to go out tomorrow, and it will be returnable on December 10th at 11 a.m. Public bids will be open here.
And lastly, resolution 185, they came in of bills, $1,076,000. $289.14. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Vote, please.
Mr. Veracchia.
Yes.
Mr. Crowley.
Yes.
Ms. Hohenleitner.
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Resolutions on the consent agenda passed.
Thank you. And resolution 186, 2016 is the, it's 2016, I'm here.
Yes. I'm sorry,
I'm
I missed it.
That's okay.
Spelling police missed it too.
There were two things, Borough was misspelled.
Oh,
There's just one.
All right.
All right, so wait, resolution 186 is not?
186, 2019.
Okay.
And actually, I think we were talking about viscous dogs at one point.
Those sticky dogs. Okay, this is preliminary investigation from Mother Teresa Regional School.
So Mayor, this is authorizing the planning board to do direct and conduct a necessary preliminary investigation to determine whether the study area, Mother Teresa, qualifies as a non-condemnable redevelopment area under certain criteria under state statute. Basically, the governing body has, Ms. Berlin made it known what the governing body decided at the last meeting. They want to move forward with an investigation, and in order to do that, you have to follow certain procedures. And we do have a preliminary option for the church, which I will share with you, not even in executive session, but at a later time. And this authorizes the planning board, directs the planning board to move forward with this preliminary investigation. We are looking for at least a 6-month opportunity to do the preliminary investigation, but this is what you need to get it going.
All right, okay, can I get a motion to adopt?
So
that?
moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Veracchia.
Yes.
Mr. Crowley.
Yes.
Ms. Hohenleitner.
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Ordinance 186, 2019 is passed.
Thank you. At this time, in case there's anybody who hasn't gotten something off their chest, we're once again opening the public discussion, public comment. Same procedure, raise your hand, state your name. Yes, Mr.
James Kraus, 77 Bayside Drive. Last week, I spent several days in Los Angeles, saw a lot of beautiful murals on walls, particularly in Venice Beach. Sent a lot of examples to Mr. Crowley, loaded up his mailbox. What's happening with the street art and mural ordinance?
So we expect to have something introduced next council meeting.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Brady?
Kate Wiggington, 62 Avenue D. Several questions. I guess mostly is what's an investigation, what does that mean, and who does it, what is it, and is anybody notified about it? For St. Agnes?
I'll answer part of that. The
Oh,
local.
wait, and I thought you said that you had made things known after the last meeting. I don't remember anything coming public about.
Yes, Ms. Berlin put it on the record.
Yeah,
It was on the record.
Yeah.
there wasn't anything specific, we said, we said we were moving forward with, further investigation.
Okay.
When I came out of executive
Oh, yeah,
session,
yeah,
I
we
was,
just-
I
yeah. Step.
made a general comment,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
So the local redevelopment and housing law requires that in order to do this investigation, the municipality has to, by resolution, which they've just passed, ask the planning board to undertake this preliminary investigation. It's normal to determine whether the property meets the criteria that is set forth in the local redevelopment and housing law. It's usually done by a professional planner. Do we have it?
We do.
Okay, so that's who would be doing the preliminary investigation. After they do the investigation, then they have to respond to us by resolution with their findings.
To mayor and council.
The mayor and council,
So
yes.
the gentlemen that were here several weeks ago?
Well, that's really up to the planning
Or
board.
anybody, okay.
Andy Thomas Planning, has been the master planner. We've used hired Roland Red Bank for our affordable housing, we've used Sonnenfeld Tropia, so it's really up to the planning board who they wanna direct us to.
And that wouldn't be like a preconceived opinion before the hearing comes up?
So there's a certain criteria that you have to meet in order to be considered an area in need of redevelopment or rehabilitation. It's a category A through H, if you will, and that's part of the evaluation.
That sounds like a self-serving thing where they're investigating something that they're gonna hear. Does that make sense?
No, because,
No, not-
I'm sorry, because they're not investigating it. It's a planner that's investigating it. And they're looking at all the options to see if it meets the criteria to be an area in need of redevelopment or rehabilitation. And there's certain reasons for that. It becomes a little bit more desirable, and the governing body can dictate, if you will, to a developer what can get built there, versus a developer coming in and going to the planning board and trying to get their approval and, getting it approved. This way, the town has control of that property, and I believe Ms. Berlin also reported at the last meeting, there'll be further public hearings on what will get done there.
That's the next question, okay.
And that's just to add, I'm glad that you said that, because that is really the key for us as a borough. Is to have this done, and then that gives us the ability to then listen to you and figure out what do we wanna do, as opposed to, the whole reason this ever came up is that so a developer doesn't come in and dictate to us what they wanna do.
That's a little caveat that I was just wanting to hear.
That's it.
Second thing, the borough guys do a great job of the leaves. You have a very, very liberal policy. Gates are open for the brush. I think it's time for our code enforcement guy to get his little book out and start writing some summonses for those who are violating the brush pickup, because they do a great job. And then you come out a Sunday afternoon and people have decided to pull down a tree and it stays there forever. So maybe Mr. Raz could start,
So the way our process works is Mr. Phillips or Mr. Kreck, who is our street superintendent, Jimmy's our DPW director, they go around and get a list. They all have iPhones now, so they take a picture, they send in the list, and then Mr. Rast usually writes a violation notice. If they're a repeat offender, they will get a summons. He's issued several. As you know, Mr. Rast is here part-time, 15 hours a week. He also does all the CO inspections in that 15 hours. So, we can definitely maybe double or triple his salary or budget, and we can have somebody out there all the time. But right now, we do the best we can with what we got, and the eyes and the ears on the street are Mr. Phillips and Mr. Kreck right now, so.
well, we could give him a deputy.
I have a question in that regard, because I understand the dilemma with Mr. Rast. What I'm wondering is, so Jim, I was out in Malibu again last week, and I was talking to some of my friends that are sheriffs. They have a big problem with people illegally parking their RVs, and they just red tag them. There's no legal weight to what they do, but it does put people on notice. I'm wondering if, Jimmy, would it be advantageous if we printed up something, and when you're just out and about, to be able to put that somewhere on the premises when people are doing something illegally? I mean, it's just like a quick walk to a mailbox or something like that. It doesn't mean that you're actually having to engage anybody, but just let people know, like, hey, this is not supposed to be out here. And maybe they pull it back to what, back onto their property, to what Kate's suggesting. I'm just looking for something that doesn't add time, but puts people on notice, like, this is not copacetic.
Yeah, and a lot of times, a lot of repeat offenders, this happens a lot over and
Right.
over, and I would say 50% of the time, when I do interact with the homeowner, the resident, it doesn't go over well. There's an argument immediately, we missed them, they didn't put it out, this happened, that kind of thing. Other times they're receptive to it. When I can, I'll get Mr. Rance involved, and he'll go up and, write a gently written letter. It's not very aggressive.
Well, it's not a gently written letter, it's a violation notice.
Yeah, but
So
it's not-
$2,000 fine, so it's not gently written. We do that right now for recycling. If the sanitation guys find that you have single stream mixed recycling, you get a yellow sticker, they don't pick it up, their guys take a picture, send it to Jimmy. Jimmy either manages it, sends it to me, Richie sends a violation notice. They get the picture, no pun intended, usually pretty quick. When you get a violation notice, you get that pretty quick too. And they call Rich. Rich's phone is going crazy all the time, so as long as we get that list from the street department, from Roger, from Jimmy, and we manage it with a picture, so in case they wanna come and contest it, we have it for the judge. We've had a few of them, we've had people paying $250 fines, $500 fines, they never do it again.
Right.
Cause they learned, but better, but we've had the problem forever, since stormwater management rules have been put in effect since 2005. And, you know, and then we get people that wanna complain that we're using the reverse 911 system to talk about leaves in the street. You know, you can't win either way.
No.
So,
I was
we do our
wondering if
best.
There was some intermediary step that was.
And you can't put a notice in anybody's mailbox, that's a federal violation.
That's right.
Mr. Crowley, I get it.
Yeah.
Absolutely
But
right.
you can't do it. So then you put it in the door, and then the thing blows away, and then the door don't latch, and then the wind blows, and you break it.
But you have a great policy.
Put it in a
Bottom
plastic
line, you have
bag.
a great policy.
Yes, ma'am.
And the next thing, I went to a recycling, I think I've told this in the past. They think 11 pounds is the greatest thing. Adam in particular, because we're still separating our stuff, they love it. So they would hope
Thank you.
everybody in Monmouth County, they would hope Monmouth County would do their own, but, you know. Next thing, Mr. Crowley, you're absolutely correct. Food Gen's gotten really a little snarky with the plastic bags. But however, I was at a recycling seminar and I had a conversation with Little Silver. Apparently, Little Silver's reaction with Acme has been like, oh my God. So I don't get it, but, you know.
I will say to their credit, to this point, we've met with, 5 different members of the family. And we did point out that the notices felt a little doom and gloom, a little dark, a little heavy. And so, we've been talking to them about, you know, like, we're all in this together, you know? And let's jump on the team and let's get rid of these plastics and we'll do it together. And they've been open to that, very open to that. They shared some material, I'm gonna share it with everybody else when I go home. And then, like I said, we wanna do an in-house sort of, presentation, people coming in and out. So I think we're hopefully turning the right corner on that.
I think the self-serve maybe was the biggest problem because that immediately gets everybody's attitude up about how many bags they're gonna buy.
Yeah, right.
I also think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding of what the ordinance read, and I think that when that was cleared up for them. Also, Red Bank, they have a big store in Red Bank, and Red Bank just passed an ordinance that goes into effect after ours, so I know they were trying to leverage that date to try to get a little extra time, and we were very firm on that.
You already pushed this a
You
year.
already gave it to me.
We did once, but I will say that Steve and I were there 2 Sundays ago. And we handed out some reusable bags that we had, and the reaction from the public in front of the store owners, the family, was very positive. So I think that they saw that if they positioned it differently, and then John did a great job with their marketing department, so they are our #1 retailer in Atlantic Highlands, and they have some concerns about, other businesses like Peapod that do drop off, that we need to find ways to hold these other businesses accountable to the same standard that Foodtown is. So they have some valid, they have a lot of valid concerns, and everybody's concerns are valid, and we're trying to address those too, so that they feel that they're heard.
And one final comment about the dog ordinance. We can't even get dogs registered in this town. I mean, Mrs. Rodden has like 80 dogs in her building that aren't even registered. So how are we even thinking about, I mean, we know it's a litigant society, which is really too bad. But how are you thinking about getting some sort of compensation when you can't even register the dogs? That was just a comment. And we've had this discussion forever, right? And, you know, we've had surveys done, my father did a survey, I mean, it's been going on forever and ever about surveys about dogs that aren't registered.
I remember the one year Mr. Harris sent out, a pretty snarky, use your word, postcard, that, hey, if you don't register by, you're gonna get, and oh my God. But you know what, we had 220 dogs registered that year. So it does become a tool.
It has to be,
So.
it has to be, for a lot of reasons.
We did go back to your recycling for a minute, we did a 4th grade science presentation today on recycling. Steve's son was in the class and several others that I recognized, and Jay Sims, the new county recycling coordinator, came in and did a nice presentation to the 4th graders. Mrs. Bellatoni's class, I believe that's her name?
Bellantoni.
Donatelli?
Bellantoni, with an N.
Thank you, Ms. Norfolk. But it went over very well, and the smart kids, they already knew about the plastic bag ban at Food Town. You know, they know the effects of, it actually went over very well.
Well, the green team's been very active down that
Yeah.
school for a long time, so
Yeah.
that helps too. And he's the gentleman who gave the seminar, the recycling that I went to.
Right at the AG building.
And he's very happy to come and do anything for anybody.
Yep.
So. Yes, Mr. Barbato.
Yeah, Paul Barbato, 22 Laurie Road. Adam, I'm going to thank you for contacting the Princeton firm for Henry Hudson. I appreciate that. I'm just wondering, one other thing is, are you, as time goes forward, are you going to contact other firms to see about comparisons, if money's, about proposals of
Hopefully they're gonna come up, they're gonna come in and do an evaluation,
Okay.
and then they're gonna come up with a plan. And then I'll go to contractors, several contractors, how to institute the plan and for what kind of money. So I'm not sure, Mr. Romeyer will be involved, I'm not sure I need an additional engineer review, 2 or 3 of them. I think the borough engineer,
Great.
Princeton Hydro, they have a great reputation. And when I go out to price it, yes, of course, I'll get more than 1 or 2 prices.
Yeah, because you like that rule of 3.
I do.
Yeah, and I agree. Also, Mayor, there happens to be someone who was elected to the school board, and she's here tonight, Deborah Apella.
Oh, I'm sorry. And I sat next to her and voted. Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. At this time, sorry, yes, that's all right.
Stephanie Ladiana, 65 Lincoln Avenue. 2 things. I had a conversation, so I'm not sure how would you mind not recording me if you don't mind? For me. I had a conversation about bags at Food Town, and there was a girl who was working there, and she said, really, people are being very good about it. It's really, no offense to any other people, but she said it's really the old timers that sort of don't want to change their ways. So, anyway, and just the whole, that whole issue. My daughter has a nonprofit called the Plastic Wave Project, and she's working with Joe Reynolds. Everybody knows from years ago. He's got an organization called Save Fish and Wildlife, and they're doing a microplastic, the 17th of November, a Sunday from 11 to 12. They meet at Sandy Hook Beach for training, and this is gonna be a long-term thing. They've got meter squares they're gonna drop down, and they're gonna teach people how to, string through the sand and find the microplastics that are there. So it's really important stuff. And then one more totally different subject. Adam, I haven't had time to look at the budget lately, but what is our debt capacity and what's available, and what portion of our budget is debt payments?
So, I'd rather look it up than, I have an idea, but I'd rather look it up because, Mrs. Kennedy's recording and I'll get blamed if I'm not right, so I want to,
Okay.
I'll let
And
you know.
what, I'll look it up online. I just was thinking that I might know.
Sure.
Carol, yeah, there's no.
Caroline Northrop, 10 Ocean Boulevard. I just wanted to, in the last week, it's been so drama-filled with elections and everything, and we've been talking a lot at school, and I just wrote a little something to express my thanks and my sentiments, and I like that you opened the meeting, Mayor, with an expression of coming together. So I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, because I'm really bad at speaking. So I've lived in Atlantic Highlands on and off for the last 15 years, and I've always come back to this town because I feel a strong sense of safety and belonging. I can't say the same about other towns along the Bay Shore, and I don't bring my visiting friends and family to those areas for that reason. My partner and I remain as residents because we feel safe and welcome here. In Atlantic Highlands, there's no single definition of family, there's no dominant lifestyle. So this is why it was so distressing to receive a very hateful flyer mailed to all residents that defamed Councilwoman Kennedy's dedication to safety and human rights. This flyer was xenophobic, threatening, and disgracefully out of touch with the progress our town has made to bring people from all walks of life together in a safe way. As a 13-year teacher here in town, I'm proud to say that the real future of Atlantic Highlands lies in our diverse and open-minded school community. At AHES, teachers work hard every day, along with our wonderful police department, to make sure that all of our children feel safe, celebrated, and valued, regardless of what country they were born in, what they look like, or how many moms and dads they have. The people who composed this flyer are clearly not in touch with our amazing school. If they were in touch with us, they would know that Councilwoman Kennedy is a class parent, which requires an incredible amount of time and energy on a monthly basis. The flyer also stated, and I quote, "Being a PTO volunteer consists of nothing more than making a $10 donation." This is a huge slap in the face to all of our PTO volunteers who dedicate countless hours to making our school the special place that it is. Every single week, dozens of PTO volunteers manage our library classes with the students, and they help the students in our awesome school garden. Not to mention the major yearly events that would never be possible without PTO volunteers, like Field Day, the talent show, and the art show. The people behind this misinformation should be ashamed for insulting all of our school parents who help us be our best every single day at AHES. I want to close by stating that the theme of our teacher convention this week is social justice and its impact on student success. Yes. Rather than demonizing Councilwoman Kennedy for her good faith efforts to support the safety and success of youth from all walks of life, we should feel grateful to have someone with her dedicated background involved in our town and in our school system. Leaders like Councilwoman Kennedy make me feel safe and make me feel accepted in Atlantic Highlands, and you make me want to stay, both at home and in our school. And I hope that our 3 newly elected candidates who are associated with that flyer, I know in my heart that you don't feel that way, but I hope that those associated with the flyer do all they can to actively distance themselves from such closed-mindedness. Thank you.
Well, it's weird that you say that there weren't people in the audience mocking you while you were speaking.
It's not necessary. Okay, at this time, we're closing the public comment session, and in Berlin, we have only the executive session. Oh, sorry.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Council, second, third, private, city officer.